The number of black banks have dwindled from 44 in 1986 to 41 just prior to the 2008 recession. Folks, now there are only 23 in America. Even with hashtag Bank Black, some still don't understand the value and the importance for these institutions that are engines for economic revitalization in minority communities. For 90 years, the National Bankers Association has worked hard to be a voice for black-owned banks. Today kicks off their annual conference. The theme is helping to build legacy wealth. Joining us is B. Doyle Mitchell, president of Industrial Bank in Washington, D.C. So, Doyle, I got to ask you this here. When you look at that number dropping, obviously you have competition for African-American dollars as well. What are you trying to tell other banks? Is this a function of marketing, people not knowing about their services? Is it a matter of better relationships with community groups to be able to let folks know what exists and why they should be banking with black institutions?
Well, the reason they should be banking with black institutions, the FDIC, they did a study and they showed that minority banks overall lend more to minorities. And that seems very obvious, but in large part, large banks do not. And the matter is, if minority banks and black banks in particular are larger, then we can do more and in our communities, and we can lend more. And we can see from the past recession that relying on large institutions is not in our best interest.
So how are black banks, how are they being competitive today when it comes to marketing, when it comes to social media, when it comes to reaching African Americans?
Well, number one, we clearly don't have the marketing budgets that large institutions have, but we are on social media. We are reaching out to the community in a number of ways every day, and we definitely are on social media.
Do you have, does the NBA have, again, have you a collection where, let's say, you have all the Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts of all of your black banks on your website? So if somebody watching or listening right now wanting to reach out to them, can they go to your website right now and be able to use your site as the hub or the portal to be able to access all these black-owned banks?
The National Bank has been updating its website continuously. You can get a list of all of the black banks on the National Bankers Association website, and minority banks, because the National Bankers Association is not just black banks, but yes, you can. Whether all the social media information is on the National Bankers website, I'm not exactly sure, but you can then move to the individual banks and get their social media information.
All right, questions there from our panel. We'll first start with Ralph.
Well, just to let you know, I do have my business account at Industrial.
Oh.
But also, to one of the points that you were making, I live on social media. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get up in the morning, before my feet hit the floor, and
you're a preacher, you don't pray first?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes,
Roland, we need you back here.
But the point I was trying to get at is, I live on social media, and I have never seen anything in social media from Industrial Bank.
At Industrial Bank, you've got to.
No, but I mean on Facebook, Twitter. Mm-hmm. I live with this thing, mm-hmm. And so I mean, to get to Roland's point, I'm there, good service, but I do think that a little bit more effort needs to be made, especially social media is free, to get to pump the message out. I get stuff from Bank of America, and I see stuff from all these other banks, but from like a bank that I have an account at.
But this is a resource issue, and I think one of the things, and I want to commend you, Doyle, with Industrial and the work that you've been doing, the intergenerational, because this was passed on in your family. And I've studied, the black banks and just cringe every time we lose a bank, especially when we lost Maggie Lena Walker's bank in Richmond, Virginia, sister, who kept that thing going from the early 20th century until this last recession when the regs changed and they weren't able to keep that consolidated bank alive. The resource issue, though, is a key issue. And I disagree with Ralph about the social media and with Roland about it as well. I think it's important, but I don't think it's the most important thing. We find whatever else we want to find when we want to find it.
Sure.
Black folks can find a party when they don't have social media.
No, Julie.
I just want, in the context of commendation, I want to talk about, talk to us more about what it means for our wealth, for these banks like Industrial and like Liberty Bank, Alden's Bank down in New Orleans, and these other banks to be there. In the aftermath of Katrina, what role did Liberty play that made such a difference for our people?
Well, first of all, I have to address the resource issue, number one, because it is a resource. You know, Bank of America is 10,000 times larger than Industrial Bank. When people see banks, they think all banks are equal, and they are absolutely not. So they can blast all over America, you know, whether it's advertising or social media or not. I mean, they've got crews of people that work on social media, and we don't. African American banks are just like many African American businesses. We need capital. We need capital to grow. We need capital to expand and put more resources into marketing and social media and things like that. And that only comes from our community. And the thing, I mean, I didn't know we were going to go here, but the thing is, African Americans don't support African American businesses. Period.
I made that point here on the show a while back.
We're the only group on the face of the planet that doesn't do it.
Right. One dime out of one of our dollars goes to our own businesses.
But you know,
if that.
I have. I don't have 1 second. I don't have much time in this. I don't have much time in this segment. Scott, what's your question?
Question is, what are we doing about getting African American based banks more resources? Because it's a circle. You know, customers will say, well, they don't have the same resources that the majority bank does, and you say, well, that comes from community investment. What are black banks doing to get there?
Well, we have to raise capital. That's the bottom line. And we have to bring capital to our sector. And for wealthy African Americans, we're here. We can compete. We have competed. We've competed for 83 years, and we're only the fifth oldest African American bank. So there's banks that have been around.
We watched Industrial Bank grow for sure. I've got my banking system or loans there and stuff, and I've watched it over 20 or 30 years. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Hope you have a great conference.
Thank you.
So here's why. So again, to close this out, so Doyle, the reason I specifically wanted to go there is because I've been speaking all across the country. I was in the Austin Area Urban League on Saturday. I'll be speaking to the North Carolina State Conference of the NAACP on Saturday in Raleigh. And the thing is this here, I talk about the pillars of our community: black banks, black media, also HBCUs. And the thing that, as somebody who has been integrally involved in social media, who launched the first black audio podcast for a news source at the Chicago Defender in 2005, the first video podcast in 2006. The point I'm making is here: when we don't have the same level of resources, what is at our disposal? And what I'm trying to get for African Americans, if we over-index on social media, we over-index on PDAs. What I'm saying is, I think what I've told black newspapers, the same thing I'm telling black banks. Let's maximize social media to be able to get our message out, because that way we were able to reach where our people are as well. And so that's why I was curious just to know in terms of exactly where you guys were with that. And I certainly hope that that's one of the things at the conference. Are you live streaming any parts of your conference?
No, because we have high level regulators at the conference, and they don't want to be quoted word for word.
Okay.
We talk about some pretty sensitive issues.
All right,
but on the social media piece, if just everyone under the sound of my voice would follow their local black bank, then we can begin to start putting out content that they can see.
All right, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much, folks.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.